Hi, I'm Temper Truth. I've got a new toy, a Kyra synthesizer, and in this video I want to discuss my reasons for choosing the Kyra synthesizer and give you some of my first thoughts and impressions. Okie dokie. So here is the Kyra synth. It's had a review on Bad Gear amongst other places, and the comments are mixed. I am not in a position to make any judgment based on experience of a huge amount of synthesizers. I do have a Polybrute, an Axis Virus, which is my first synthesizer, which I bought for about £2,000 about 10-15 years ago. So why have I bought this Kyra then? Well, recently I've been taking the idea of performing live music seriously, and I've been watching a lot of videos and watching doorless live performances, and I have been doing videos myself using my Digitakt to sequence my synth gear. So I've got this Axis Virus, and what I've come to realise about the Axis Virus since they took away the software or stopped updating the software for the Mac is that I've been using it as a piece of hardware rather than controlling it through my DAW, and as a result I've got very much into using multi-mode, and the Digitakt has 8 tracks, MIDI tracks that can sequence different parameters on my Virus. And if you've seen any of my previous videos, you'll know that I've been using the Virus in multi-mode, a bass maybe on one track, a pad on another, and having the Digitakt perform each part. It's given the Virus a new lease of life in my studio. So if I'm going to do a live performance, go out on the road, do I really want to be carrying a full-length keyboard plus my Digitakt, any other gear that I might take, a mixer, Chaos pad? Well, I don't have a hard case for it. It's quite a lot of gear to take with me, especially if I'm only just doing things like electronic music, open mic nights. If I could have anything smaller, I would. This is where my search for an alternative to the Axis Virus started. I started watching videos on YouTube, and a couple of synths that grabbed my attention. Veronica Performer, a chap called Aura, uses it a lot, and I love that analog sound. Performer is technically 4 mono synths in one unit. It has no ability to program patches. If I'm performing live, I'll be in a situation where I'm having to change the dials and try and rely on memory to get something similar to what I maybe have practiced in my studio. I've got tracks I want to sound reasonably similar to the original tracks that I created in Logic. Having presets or multi-modes where you can skip from one project to the other is definitely what I'm looking for. EM, OM, electric music open mic nights. One has suddenly appeared in my local area, and I'd like to go make the most of that situation. I see a lot of videos of people with 1 or 2 sequencers, and the sequencer is programming maybe 2 or 3 different little mini synthesizers. So I could have gone down that route. I could have bought myself maybe a little tiny Moog bass synth, or there's a couple of things out there, I can't remember the names of them, but lots of these little synthesizers. That would have been great. Okay, maybe I'd have bought 3 little synthesizers for relatively cheap to create my tracks with and play live. Because I have got an Axis Virus, I've been enjoying a multi-mode. Let's discuss what a multi is, in case people don't know. A multi is like a bank of 8 different parts, and parts meaning patches or sounds. Kyra, at least, this has 8 parts per multi-bank. The Axis Virus has 16 parts per multi. It does start to get a bit flaky the more parts that you use. I don't need 16 parts because the Digitakt only has 8 parts. So the Kyra has 8 parts. Perfect. Basically, on the Kyra, you can create a multi. Here at the moment, I've got multi 0. I've called it Cake because that's the name of the track I've recently worked on. There is a live video on my channel. Within that multi-bank, you've got parts, and this is part 1 here, MIDI channel 9. So MIDI channel 9 on my Digitakt is controlling this bass sound. Track 10 on the Digitakt will be controlling the next parameter. So if I press part, I go along part 2, MIDI channel 10, and so on. You can select a group of sounds for a track or a project and have them stored in banks called multis. You can edit these multis by pressing the multi button on your Kyra, and then you go to this screen which says patch bank. You've got banks from A to Z, and they all store presets and your own patches. Patch number, choose the number you want, or go through these and select a different sound for whatever best suits the track. The main reason for buying a Kyra is I want one synth that can do it all, play my bass, play my pads, play all those different things all at the same time, and have my Digitakt be the sequencer that controls each individual part. I've got the Kyra set up to record now, and I'm going to use a sequence I've already created on the Digitakt to control it, to demonstrate just a handful of sounds. I'm not going to go for a full bank of sounds. Just one thing to discuss whilst I've got everything plugged in and I'm recording into Logic. I tested the volume on the Digitakt, and I actually had to turn the Digitakt down to get it to a reasonable volume, probably coming in about, I don't know, 12 dB. And on the Kyra, with it turned up full, it's coming in around about minus 25. So you can see there that actually it's quite a low volume. Without plugging the Kyra into two of the mono inputs on the Mackie mixer here and using the gain to turn the volume up, I have no other way of increasing the volume on the Kyra apart from in post-production with gain and so on. For some reason on this Mackie mixer, when you're on a stereo channel and you turn up the gain, it doesn't actually affect the actual stereo input, it only affects the mic input, which is a little bit annoying, but anyway. Alright, so let's have a look at some of these sounds. I've got MIDI channel 9 here controlling a lead sound on here called Call of the Valkyrie. Anyway, let's play it, see what it sounds like. So I quite like this sound. So I'll play with the cut off. Okay, so that's sound one I've got going on. On MIDI channel 2, I've got this pad sound. And the Digitakt is adding some automation to that, or I've programmed some automation in with the LFO. There wasn't as much movement in the LFO on this one on the original, so I've done some editing there. Okay, let's hear sound 3. It's a pad called Fantasia in Electronica. I've edited this, so I put some distortion on there and maybe a bit of delay. And I've also been using it in this arrangement with arpeggiator on and off. So I've been changing where it's got the arpeggiator on and off. Okay, alright. And then sound 3.
which was a Fingers. It was like Mrs. Fingers bass, but I've made some adjustments to that sound as well to get a bit more resonant and a bit more, give it a bit more juice. One thing I found with some of the patches on here, in order to give it that juice, you have to kind of go into the EQ section and really kind of boost some of those frequencies to kind of give it some punch. So in comparison to the Virus has got loads of juice, it's got loads of punch. But then again, with the Virus, I sometimes found that the input levels when recording into the computer were quite low. I think that's the same on most synths, maybe. Not the Digitakt though, but then that's not a synthesizer. That really does punch out some sound. Let's have a little play around and see how it all comes together in this little arrangement I've done. Just going out on the fly, so it might not work, but let's have a go. Okay, so yeah, I mean, that's just something I've been putting together over the last couple of days. Bearing in mind, there's 4 parts there being played, and all 4 parts, apart from the beat, obviously, all 4 parts are coming from the Kyra at the same time, which is why I bought the Kyra in the first place. I've got another 4 MIDI channels on the Digitakt, and I've got another 4 parts that can be used on the Kyra. So in that sense, the Kyra is doing its job, and I'm happy with that because that's what I wanted. A multi-timbral synthesizer that would hook up with my Digitakt. I guess let me know what you think in the comments down below. What did you think of those sounds? They're sounds I've chosen for my taste, and obviously a little bit of tweaking here and there. Do you think they sounded good, or do you think they sounded crap? I think they sound quite good, to be honest. My only issue is the volume, but I do think they sound quite good. And obviously, like I say, with the EQ, if you tweak the EQ, you can get these sounds sounding quite juicy. People don't buy synthesizers to use the presets, but I do look at the presets as a kind of guide as to what the synthesizer can achieve. The presets on the Virus, there's loads of them, and there are some dirty basses and some crazy wacky sounds on there, and it's just got a really good bank of stuff that you can already use straight out of the box. The Polybrute, on the other hand, they have updated the factory presets, and also on their website you can you get other preset packs which are free actually with Polybrute. But I have to be honest, a lot of the presets on the Polybrute leave a lot to be desired. So that's 3 synthesizers there, and I wouldn't say there's really much in it. I think in terms of presets, the Virus stands out for having the best ones. I guess it depends what you want as well. Issues a lot of people have with the Kyra is it's virtual analog, and obviously there's a lot of snobbery out there about analog synthesizers, and I get it. If you listen to a synthesizer like Moog or a Prophet, that's for synthesizer snobs and users to geek out on. I don't think the average listener to a track is going to sit there and think, oh, that doesn't sound analog to me, that sounds like a virtual analog. Or yeah, they're not thinking that. They're listening to the music. Are they enjoying the music, or are they not enjoying the music? Do the sounds sound good, or do they sound crap? And I listen to a lot of I listen to drum and bass, and I could guarantee that some of those really dirty drum and bass sounds on things like Break or I don't know, Caliber, I can guarantee those sounds weren't created on analog gear, software synths of anything, and people still love it. Analog, virtual analog, non-analog. I think the question is, do you like the sounds? I like the sounds I've chosen there, and there are other sounds on here. It's quite a modern sounding synth in the sense that there's some really nice kind of dancey, trancey, housey kind of pads and stuff on there. Okay. Oh, you were joking me. I just did all of that and didn't fucking record it. Oh, you bastard.
So why might buying a Kyra be a mistake? I did see a bad gear video prior to buying it. The main flaw I could decipher was there's no value dial. You've got 2 buttons here, so if you want to go through the parameters and choose things, whether it's wave tables or changing the value of some of the hidden parameters within the synth which don't have a knob, you have to use these buttons to go backwards and forwards, as where quite a lot of synthesizers will have a dial which allows you to scroll through. I've got to say, the Virus has a dial which allows you to scroll through the values, and I don't always find having a dial actually makes things any quicker. I quite often find that actually the dial either turns too quickly or too slowly, and you quite often end up missing the number you're trying to get to and have to use the button to actually go 1 increment along, as well when you're using the actual dial. Quite often it will jump 10 at a time and you end up missing the value you want. So I don't really find having a dial really speeds things up amazingly, but it's nice to have the choice. There are things I've discovered since having it which I do find slightly irritating. One of those would be if you turn any of the knobs, the screen changes. If you've got this button here, follow, engaged. So I turn the cutoff filter and you can see that changes and it jumps to that to that page. On most synthesizers that I've used, if you have a preset saved with all of the different parameters at the values you want them to be at, there would be either in brackets next to the value here the original value. So if I turn this cutoff frequency, that value is changing, but if I forget what the original value was, there's no guide, whether it's a number in brackets or whether it's a circle with a little line on, which shows you where the actual dial was originally set to. So that would be a really nice feature, because you sometimes want to go onto a synthesizer, you've got the preset all saved up, you want to play around with those dials, but you might think, actually no, I want to get back to the original, and there's no guide once you've moved them. You do have an undo knob, but that's extremely limited. It only goes back one stage. So if I turn this dial now and then let go, move something else, and then move that again, and press undo, it will go back to the last value, not the original value, if that makes sense. The other one is that when you turn one of the knobs, quite often with synthesizers, there are settings that you can implement in the system settings which will decipher the behavior of the knobs. And what I mean by that is, say for example, if the cutoff on the preset is set to right at the beginning, let's say down here, but the previous patch you were using had the dial set here. If I turn this on the Polybrute or the Virus, nothing will happen, no sound will change with the cutoff until it reaches its actual value. So the value the preset is set at, and then after that it will then lock into place and will change the sound, which is great because it means that if the original value is here but the last preset was here and I change this, it will jump from high to low frequency. So basically this just jumps from one place to another. There's no setting that I have found as of yet that allows you to program the behavior of the knobs so that it won't change the value until it gets to the original value. Hopefully that makes sense. With this follow button engaged, any parameter you change, the attack, it jumps to the envelope generator, resonance. In the filter section, it'll jump to the filter 1 section and resonance. If I press any of the LFO buttons, it changes to the LFO, which is all great. That's useful. But let's say, for example, I'm doing a live performance. All these values are for the particular patch that has been selected within that multi-bank at the moment. And that, so on part 1, I change a parameter, it jumps to that filter. But if I want to then go and change the filter settings on part 2, I can't go from left or right until I have pressed exit to exit that page, and I'll jump back to this page, and then I can go to the next setting. Okay, there is a way around that. You just don't have follow engaged. So if I don't have follow engaged, I can go to the first one, twiddle the cutoff. None of the cutoff settings are shown on the screen, but I can hear it with my ears, and then I can go to the next one and I can twiddle it. And I don't have to keep on pressing exit. If you want less to do rather than more to do. The reason why I mention this is on the Virus, when you're in multi-mode, so I can change parameters and I can go from side to side, still having the filter parameters engaged, and it'll just show you at the top which part you are now on. You don't have to exit anything to change anything. You can just jump from one part to the other by pressing the arrow buttons. The synthesizer works in multi-mode. There is only multi-mode. You're always in a multi-program, which means that if you've created a multi for a particular project, if I then go through my parts and my banks to find new patches, new sounds to work with, if I'm doing that from a multi that I've already created for a project, I will be changing the sounds within that project, which I guess it sounds like it makes sense, but there's no way of not being in multi. You have to have one multi project, which they say in the manual, to always leave multi-0 as your bank for playing around with sounds, as if you're in single mode. Just a bank that you use to test out sounds. And then from then on, multi-1 would be a project, multi-2 would be a project, etc. There are apparently, 127 multi-banks that you can have of eight patches. How long it will take to use that up? Probably take quite a while, but eventually you will get to a point where you're close to using up all of your multis. you're going to have to back everything up in order to kind of create more. It would be nice if there was a way of not being in multi, so you didn't interfere with your projects by mistake, because that could easily happen, I guess. But I am going to use multi-zero as a play around bank. A couple of final thoughts on the Kyra to round up this video. A lot of that last section of the video may kind of come across as negative or irritating components or features of the Kyra, but I have to be honest, if I was buying lots of small, cheaper synthesizers, I'm sure they would all be very limited in their own way. So I'm not too bothered by these limitations. I actually think for what it offers, it is completely worth the money I spent on it. I did get a second hand from Reverb, which is another story in itself. Overall, I am pleased. Something I didn't mention, Kyra has 4 sets of stereo outputs on the back. So I can use those stereo outputs for 4 stereo outputs into my mixer, or I could use them as mono. So basically within that, there's 1 mono for each part potentially there. So if I've got an 8-part multi set up on here with all sounds playing at the same time, I could record all 8 parts into my mixer and into my DAW at the same time. But I don't have to do it that way, because it also has 8-part USB transfer. So I can plug it into my computer via USB. I can create 8 tracks within my DAW and actually send the audio via USB. So it works as an interface in that sense, although there is no input into the Kyra, so you can't plug an external instrument into your Kyra and then into your computer, which would have been good. Overall, I am pleased. I think the Kyra is definitely worth considering if, like me, you want something to take out live and not have to take a ridiculous amount of equipment with you. It's not small, but it's not big either. I've been Temper Truth. Thank you for watching. If you like my video, please like and subscribe. We'll see you next time. Ciao.